Yes, Chairman Burkhart, we're live.
Okay, thank you. So we are live. Diana, would you take roll, please?
Okay. Representative Baker,
Here.
Representative Brown,
Here.
Representative Burt,
Here.
Representative Henderson,
Excused.
Representative McGuire,
Here.
Representative Obermueller, Representative O'Hearn,
Here.
Representative Stivar,
Present.
Chairman Burkhart.
Here. Okay. So today we have three bills, Senate File 3, Senate File 13, Senate File 106. And I would like to get through all three of these bills today. I don't want to hold any of them over. And just a reminder, please speak through the chair in your testimony. And I see we have quite a few people virtually to speak apparently on Senate File 3. And I will just warn you up front, I may have to limit your time just so we can get through these three bills. So with that, Senator, do you want to present Senate File 3? Please.
Mr. Chairman and members of the the House Transportation, Highways and Military Affairs Committee. Thanks for having me today. My name is Mike Garou and I represent District 17 in Teton County, all held in Teton County, Wyoming. And I'm here today to present you Senate File 3. And before I walk you through and answer any of your questions, I'm just going to tell you the genesis of this bill. I filed this bill a couple of years ago and asked both previous chairs of this committee, House and Senate, to be co-sponsors. And after discussing it with them, I pulled the bill and we made it an interim topic and we studied it. Where it comes from is a situation that's happening where we live up on our side of the state. We have a very large mountain pass, an 8,800 foot pass that lies at one side of our valley. The valley floor is 6,200 feet. There's a lot of that pass that has over 10% grade. It's a very steep road, and during the wintertime can be a very treacherous road. The state of Wyoming and the Wyoming Department of Transportation has barred any truck traffic, trailer traffic during the winter and all year round, and even in the summer, a gross vehicle weight limit of, I think, 60,000 pounds. That's the basic story. But here is the problem. It also is a way for folks who live on the other side of the hill. A large part of our workforce lives on the other side of that hill and traverses that mountain every day. Highway 22, that's part of that hill, the road on that hill carries more traffic on certain days than Interstate 80. In the morning and in the evening, it is a constant stream of traffic of workers going to and from work. Then what happens is that a lot of vehicles who are overweight use that pass, and most of them fall into two groups. Some are vectored that way by their GPS system, just like we have and we use when we travel. Let's say Interstate 80 is closed or another road is closed, and so they're stuck there, a truck driver, and he just puts in an alternate route and it sends them over. Doesn't tell them about the weight restriction, but the weight restriction is clearly posted. Well, by the time they get there, now they have a choice. Do you go over the pass overweight or not? Some do, some don't. Then there's another group, and this is a group that's really problematic for us. A lot of commerce and business comes over that hill, like I say, to work. That's how a lot of truck traffic does too. And since the number of troopers that work the area is small, even if they're overweight, if they're carrying a load of materials or whatever, and they know they're overweight, but for them, it's economics, because to go around the pass takes an extra hour. And so that's time, which equals money in their business. And so they take a chance and they go over the hill. They're operating illegally, but because they stand a 1 in 10 chance of getting caught, it goes. There's a camera there now takes a picture. They do try to police it. But by the time a policeman gets to it, he may be all the way down at Hoback Junction, miles away, and the truck is gone. And so they get away with it. Problem is, it's illegal. It destroys the road. Overweight vehicles on roads destroy the road faster. That's just a fact. So with that problem, then there's another issue. Every once in a while, one of those trucks lets go of its brakes because it's overweight and it's dangerous. That's why it's illegal. They lose their brakes, and there are 2 truck ramps that the only way they can access is to cross the roadway. Well, it's only a matter of time before it happens when folks are traveling in a string on that road, and the truck driver now has a choice: bust through the traffic to get to the runaway truck ramp, or he goes off the other side. Pretty much a Hobson's choice for him or her. That could lead to a mass casualty accident. We've had many accidents there before. Fortunately, we have had no loss of life yet. The operative word is yet. And that's why I brought the bill. What I'd like to see happen, because if we put enough police on it to patrol it, it'd be prohibitively it wouldn't be cost effective. Costs over $300,000 a year to Wyandotte to patrol the road to really try to make a difference. There is a way station right across the state line coming eastbound into Jackson. To man it would cost almost $600,000 a year. Once again, cost prohibitive. There is a scale in the roadway now. Trucks drive over the scale in the roadway as it sits. Right there where that scale is, we would put a sign. There's 20 signs there saying don't go over, but this one would flash and say, stop now, you're overweight. The truck driver then could pull over. If he feels he's underweight in error, he can then call a policeman, and a policeman come and weigh the truck on the scale, and then he could go on his way. But if he's not, and he continues over the pass, a picture is taken, and the owner of the truck is fined. That's the essence of Senate File 3. Takes a picture of an illegal vehicle committing an illegal act and fines the owner. If this is found in error, there's no fine, just like any other traffic violation. The evidence of any fine is destroyed after the case is adjudicated. No one who drives over legally is photographed. So that was the genesis of the bill. When I took it to WYDOT to get their okay, they asked if we could add construction zones. It sounded like a decent idea at the time, and we did. And then the lawyers got a hold of it over at WYDOT, and they did their work. And as sometimes happens, they thought maybe there might be another couple of things they could add on, school zones and some other things. After we heard it in the Senate, and after I presented it in the Senate and got a very, very negative reaction, we listened, which is what the process is about. We took out the school zones. We took out any other zones. We've stripped everything out, construction zones included, and brought it down to just restricted areas. We can't write it specifically for one road, but in the way it's written now, in the restricted area that's contemplated, Teton Pass is the only pass that meets the standard or is even contemplated by WYDOT to be used. So therein lies Senate File 3, a little bit of a tortured story. And I know you've gotten a lot of emails about it, but I want to make sure that I highlight what this bill isn't as well as what it is. It is not any other than just an attempt to get an illegal act, driving an overweight truck over Teton Pass, to stop. That's it. There is nothing more. I hope, it is my fervent hope, that the fine on this bill never gets levied, that this in and of itself stops illegal weight trucks from passing over Teton Pass. That's just a fact. Now, one last thing. My constituents don't want this bill either. What my constituents want is a ban on trucks on Teton Pass. Total ban. I told them no. And the reason why is because frankly, there's a lot of underweight trucks that go over the pass each day. People working, people who have businesses, who then would be unfairly disadvantaged if they were just banned from coming over. And then throw out legal trucks with the illegal, the bad apples, the good apples would have to pay for the bad apples. To me, that's wrong. And it's bad business. I am a business person. And this is a business in a large way. This is a business equation. And what we're trying to do is stop a bad business practice that also can end up with a loss of life. That's the key. This is a life safety bill. It is nothing more. That is Senate File 3. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, or if you have specifics, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Questions for Senator Guru? Any questions? Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator. I appreciate the discussion and I appreciate the paring down of the bill. My question revolves around executive authority. Do they not have the authority now to do what you were referencing, like they pass the scale and put another sign up that alerts those people that this is illegal? Is that not available to them now?
Senator?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, or Representative Baker, sorry, they do. From St. Anthony, Idaho, up until the bottom of Teton Pass and going up Teton Pass, there are no less than 20 signs already telling them about this fact. When you make the turn at Swan Valley where you could go around, there's a flash, the flashing sign, kind of like the ones that are over our freeway now on Interstate 80. It doesn't go over the roadway, but it's one of those reader signs. And during the summer, it says, flashing, gross vehicle weight over 60,000 pounds prohibited. Each way, each few miles up that road, there's a sign saying, do not, if you are, one of the restricted vehicles. And like I said, in the wintertime, it's all truck trailer traffic. But in the summertime, it's just weight. There's sign after sign after sign that says, do not go over this pass. There's a sign at that scale where I say, turn around, a flashing sign that says, do not do it. They go right on by. And therein lies the rub. Right now, those signs are all there. The signage is more than adequate to tell the tale, but.
Representative Baker.
Thank you. And I guess my question was more along integrating it and tying it to the scale that already exists. You had mentioned trucks going over the scale, being identified as overweight, and then receiving notice on a sign. That would really be my preference as opposed to a preemptive warning. So you had mentioned that. Is that something that they can do now?
Senator Guru.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Baker, yes, they could. Like I say, it would be one more sign. Without the fine part, I don't know if it would do any more than the other 29 signs that are there, but it is another alternative. Yes.
Representative Burt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator, for your time. If it's already illegal to drive overweight on this particular pass, why hasn't the illegal behavior stopped?
Senator Guru.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Burt, because as I stated in my previous testimony, the one of two ways. Either folks get vectored there by their GPS system and they just go past the signs, or they make an economic decision that it is more advantageous for them to go over the pass and save the time, even though they're overweight, even though the danger lies that they could lose their brakes and kill people. But in addition to destroying the road, which they're already doing, then it's worth it for them to do it.
Representative follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess two questions. What would be the cost of so first off, how many trucks are we talking about I guess, annually that violate this particular restriction? And what would the cost be to just add another trooper versus an entire camera system, the monitoring system, all the power, I guess the cost basis of hiring another trooper if we have that big of an issue versus a whole new camera system in order to monitor this particular route?
Senator, please.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Burke. Yes. As stated, the cost of the equipment now, the equipment's already there to do it. So there really is not much of a cost to integrating the system into it now. It's very small. The cost of putting troopers on has been estimated by WYDOT to do the job, to stop the traffic. And we're talking dozens and dozens of trucks during each summer day. And then the rest of the time up, it can be, in the last few weeks, there have been at least a half a dozen trailer trucks that have jackknifed on the road, stopping any traffic on the road for hours while they untangle the trucks. And most of those were trucks that were just, like I say, Interstate 80 was closed. They were on their way to Seattle to drop off a load, and GPS sent them that way. And they head up the road just blowing by those signs and saying, this is the way it's sending me to go. So there are a lot of them. And so the cost, upwards of $300,000 per year at a time when our budgets are strained and we're cutting budgets left and right to try to bring our budgets into line. And the others to man the station, and to man it and in such a way that would be effective would be even more expensive. So this is actually the most cost-effective way to stop the problem.
Follow up, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having a little bit of experience on this, I used to be an over-the-road truck driver. So I understand how the processes work. I think if the cameras are to go through and send a violation to the owner of the truck, which isn't necessarily always going to be the driver of the truck. The way that the Federal Motor Carrier Association changed its safety regulations, the violations that a driver get now follow the driver when they move from company to company. Before, when a driver worked for a particular company, it stayed with that company. So a driver could leave a company A, go to company B, and company B wouldn't necessarily know the driving habits of the driver. Why would, if you run the camera system and you just target the owner of the vehicle, sure, they're going to end up paying a fine and the driver may get a slap on the wrist, but you're not stopping the bad behavior. If you have a patrol officer that's there and they catch the bad habit happening, when they go to find the driver themselves, then as the driver obtains more violations, then their safety record tends to get worse and worse. And particular trucking companies, they're able to get contracts per their safety rating.
Is there a question in there, Representative?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out why we would try to target a company and not a driver if we're trying to stop bad driving habits versus a company just hiring maybe a bad driver.
Senator?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. It's a great question. And I think I feel, and I think that WYDOT felt the same way, and I don't know if any of them folks were there to testify today or not. But the bottom line is that going after the company that dispatches the truck is the fairest way and the quickest way to change the behavior. That is the essence of this. I don't want to make the driver the bad guy. And most of the time, the driver's just doing what A's told, either by his GPS device or by a dispatcher or a boss. And so that's the way I see it. I understand your point completely, but that's what we're trying to do. And that's what Senate File 3 is trying to do. Thank you.
Any other questions for the Senate? Representative Sniber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair. The automatic vehicle identification system, it says in here, discovery of other criminal actions. Are they going to be looking at every license plate that go by, every car, everything?
Mr.
Senator.
Chairman, thank you. Representative Stivar, no. The answer to the question is the trucks that go over that are overweight will be photographed. The photographic evidence will be kept until the matter is adjudicated. And once the matter is adjudicated, the photographic evidence will be destroyed. No driver of an underweight vehicle or any other vehicle will be photographed.
Amanda, why don't you go ahead and let the department in, let Director Reiner and his staff in on this. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, they're in the meeting on Zoom.
Okay. So no other questions for the senator. Senator, if you would hang with us, please. Sure. Thank you. Director Reiner, comments on Senate File 3.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, absolutely. Thank you. For the record, Luke Reiner, Director of YDOT. Mr. Chairman, I do have Colonel Haller with me today, and I know some of the questions we'll take to him, but perhaps I'll start off. We did mail a PowerPoint to all of you. I don't think we'll go through that. It does answer some of the questions that have been asked, and I will try and address those as I just step through some really facts and our thoughts on this. First, I am the individual responsible for safety on our roads, and I take this as a safety bill because we have a chronic problem in this particular oversized, overweight area. I like the senator, am concerned about travelers on the road, and I'm also concerned about the community of Wilson at the bottom, because at some point we're going to have an overloaded truck with hazmat or with some other material that hits that town, and we're going to have a disaster. The legislation that you see in terms of the automated vehicle identification mirrors that of school buses, which has been very successful in helping ameliorate the issue of drivers passing the school bus with the stop sign out. And so all of the mechanics of the enforcement of the legal aspect have been vetted and have been worked, and Colonel Haller will be happy to walk through how those mechanics works as we target drivers and then owners, and then in that order. Let me just talk about the problem on Teton Pass for a sec in terms of what we have there. So to answer one of the questions, we have 172,000 trucks, class 4 to 13, that pass over that that cross over that pass a year. In terms of the overweight classification and breaking the law, between the months of October and March 19 and 20, we had 393 trucks that we know violated the law. Of those, we gave citations to 126, so about 32%. Now, the way the system currently works is we do have a scale there, and we do weigh, and there is a light that flashes to your question, Representative Baker, that says, you're overweight, turn around and go home. And so everyone that goes down the hill knows they're overweight, and they have indeed be warned. We do know who's going, and the way we capture them, and I shouldn't say capture, the way we issue them a citation is there's an alert that goes to the trooper on duty, and they will attempt to intersect that vehicle. But, you know, like everybody, there's budget pressure in trooper land. And the trooper may be at the northern end of the county or the southern end and may never catch up. And that's sort of the reason for the disparity in why we don't cite them all. It's just a lack of manpower. And so to thwart that, Colonel Haller and his crew actually have gone to visit the trucking firms that habitually do this and said, hey, would you please stop? We've done Facebook campaigns. We've said, yeah, this is a bad deal, and you're endangering the traveling public. And the comment, like you've heard from Senator Guru, is, hey, you know what? It's a business decision for us, and we'd rather risk the citation than not following the law. And so that Mr. Chairman, it is a quick summary. It's not a revenue bill for YDOT because none of the citations would go to YDOT. They go to, by statute, to school board, to schools, and then some to the general fund. So it's not that issue for us. And as was said, the only picture that's taken is a violator. With that, Mr. Chairman, let me pass it to Colonel Haller for additional comments, and then perhaps you can ask questions for Whiteout Hall.
Colonel Haller, please.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Kevin Haller, Colonel of the Wyoming Highway Patrol. It's a pleasure to be with you today. As Director Reiner indicated, this has been an ongoing issue on Teton Pass with what I would call willful violators that are given multiple opportunities with advisements, including being overweight once they pass over the scale, with the lights flashing and advising them they're overweight. They continue on, and we've had a number of crashes. We've been fortunate so far to date to not have a fatality. But currently in statute, the only time, even when a trooper is notified via the system as described, is whenever they make contact with that violator and issue the person a citation. And so what this allows law enforcement to do, specifically troopers, is similar to the school bus legislation. It allows them to issue a citation to the registered owner. Now, having said that, the cameras in place would be prioritized to get the identification via a photo of the driver. If that is not able to happen due to sun, due to angle, due to glare, whatever the case, then at that point in time, the citation would be to the registered owner. Now, troopers interview these individuals trying to understand why it is that they would take this chance. And more times than not, the response is it's worth the gamble, so to speak. They save time on costs of paying the driver. They save time on fuel by cutting up and over that pass. And many times they have not been cited. And so most are willing to take that opportunity or chance, so to speak, to run over that pass while at great risk. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we have gone to great lengths, worked with the Idaho State Police. There's also additional signs that have been posted on that side of in another state going eastbound. And we have done special details on Teton Pass and authorized overtime. This is a 24/7 issue. And so when we're talking about trailer restrictions, that is from November 15th through April 1st. But that 60,000 pound weight limit is year long. And so we are having violators every day, all times a day, that are coming up and over that pass. And so ultimately that's what's creating the large concern and ongoing issues.
Great. Thank you, Colonel Haller. Representative Brown, questions for the director or Colonel Haller?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel and/or Director, I'm just kind of curious, is when we look at this bill, it says a fine not to exceed the maximum. And I know your troopers have a lot of discretion when it comes to certain levies of fines and stuff like that. But as I look at your guys' PowerPoint, it shows a $425 fine for this. Is that the maximum fine that we allow under statute, number one? And then my second question that is a follow-up, but it stands on its own as well. In your experience, is a higher fine a bigger deterrent? If we were to raise this to a very hefty fine that really hit these companies and/or these drivers in their pocketbooks, do you think that would solve this problem just as well?
Director, Colonel?
Mr. Chairman, I think I'll take that. Representative Brown, I believe that is the top end in our bond schedule. Having said that, I want to verify, and I will get back with you to confirm. As far as increasing the amount of that fine, as you indicated, it is $425, and that is what is the current bond amount or fine amount. Oftentimes, troopers are met with, "Oh, is that all?" So there may be some merit in increasing that fine. To what level, I'm not sure, because it is still maintained that they are going to save money by cutting over the pass and not spending additional costs on personal expenses and fuel.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Director or Colonel. I kind of have a follow-up, and that is the second offenses and the fines. And really warnings, and if you don't have this information, I'd be happy to have you get that to us later. But how many times have individuals been pulled over or stopped and issued a warning? And then how many times have there been a second offense to the same driver or exact same truck for the company? Thank you.
Colonel, I think you may have the better handle on that one.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Representative Baker. As far as multiple offenders, we do see that. And in fact, the fine doesn't go up. It is maintained at $425. And oftentimes, as Senator Guru mentioned previously, the drivers are working for a company, and the companies are sending them over, and they're on a time frame. And so as a result, the drivers are oftentimes saying, this is the way I came, and my company's just going to pay the fine whenever we come over. So, as far as second offenses and increasing the fine at that level, that could be an option. But again, I have to reiterate, much like the school, passing a school bus with the flashing lights, that gave officers the authority to issue those citations to the registered owner. And that's what this bill does as well. Currently in other statutes, troopers only have the ability to issue a citation to a physical individual, to the driver of that vehicle at that time.
Other question? Representative McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Allen, question for you. So with regard to the fine schedule, the $425 that is in your handout, is that subject to the tripling that happens when a CDL operator gets a speeding fine or anything like that?
Colonel?
Mr. Chairman, again, I would, and Representative McGuire, excuse me, I would again like to confirm this, but I do not believe that ends up on their safety score for the CDL, but I will have to check. And the reason is we continue to see multiple offenses from individuals.
All right. Representative Baker, short one. I'm going to open it to public comment.
Yeah,
We're
thank you.
running time.
And my question is just about the flashing lights. And I know that in some school districts, they do have the lights that flash on the variable speed limit signs, and they're red and blue. I'm just wondering, are the lights that flash up there, are they amber or are they red and blue? Thank you.
Colonel?
Mr. Chairman, I believe they're red and blue, but I don't want to be in error. There's a certain great extent of color blindness on my part. I may defer to Senator Guru if he's aware.
Senator?
I don't know for sure, and I wouldn't want to state it incorrectly. So I know they're flashing lights there. I think they are red. I don't know if they're red and blue.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I think I'll open it to public comment. Amanda, how many people are in the waiting room who want to speak?
Mr. Chairman, we currently have 4.
All right, and anyone here in the audience wish to speak on this bill, please raise your hand. Okay, we have one here. So,
Mr. Chairman, 4 others just raised their hand. So we have a total of 8.
okay, with that, and considering the time, I am going to limit anyone to 2 minutes, and I will time you. Amanda, you can, after 2 minutes, people on the Zoom, you can feel free to cut them off. I have to get through these 3 bills.
Sounds good, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And with that, who do we have up?
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, Ben Hornock was first.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hornock, please.
Thank you, Mr. Hornock. Forgive me for writing this down, but I'll be concise and quick. My name is Ben Hornock from Laramie County, and I testify in opposition to Senate File 3. This type of thing has been passed in other states, and they call these scam cams. When the ACLU says that they infringe on our constitutional rights of due process and privacy, we should take note. And this time, the ACLU is correct. The fact that this bill has already been amended and cut twice suggests that it is being modified to make it palatable just to get pushed through. School zones were removed and construction zones were removed from the original bill. However, the problem is that legislation in the years to come will likely put these zones back into this law along with any other zones or perceived problem areas. It opens a big can of worms for infringing legislation in the future. At some point, every movement of you as an individual in your car will be tracked and known. You are trying to catch a mouse on Teton Pass by lighting a fuse on a nuclear bomb in the state of Wyoming. Also, during the Senate Transportation Committee hearing on this bill, one of the remarks by a supporting senator stated that he had had a large number of constituents reach out to him in opposition to scam cams, but he was not going to listen to them because he thought that they had just not read the bill and did not know what they were talking about. Let me assure you, when Wyoming citizens begin to receive tickets in the mail that include a convenience fee and are held criminally liable without due process.
Mr. Chairman, that was 2 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go to the room next.
My name is Bob McLaurin. Jackson, lived there 35 years. I think this is a good bill. Not only is it will protect safety. I've lived there, as I said, 35 years. I've probably seen 15, 20 trucks come down into Wilson. Worst one took a house out. But more importantly, once you're stuck, once the pass is closed, it creates business disruptions within the town. When most of our employees worked on the other side of the hill, when the pass is closed, they can't get to work. I remember our accounts payable clerk was stuck for a couple of days due to an accident over there. So we appreciate your positive consideration of this bill.
Thank you. Any questions? Questions? Okay. Thank you. Amanda, next up in the virtual meeting.
We have Mr. Sean Dow.
Mr. Dow, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am here to speak against Senate file number 003. This bill is as engrossed right now turns our justice system on its head. What we prefer as citizens is a cop to give us a ticket. With these cameras, you'll be issuing tickets to vehicle owners, and you're limiting how they can defend themselves by telling them they can only have a defense if the car is stolen or they sold the car. This turns our justice system on its head. This makes everybody in Wyoming guilty until proven innocent. And as these tickets mount up, so will the lawsuits, sir. You better be aware that these other states have had class action lawsuits. As they issue tickets to the owner of the vehicle rather than the driver, these lawsuits will mount up and you will be costing Wyoming residents in tax dollars large amounts of class action lawsuits. I urge you to vote no against this bill. Put cops in place, not some private foreign firm to enforce law on American soil. This is ridiculous that you're running a bill that they wrote. Thank you, sir. I'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Any questions for Mr. Dow? Questions? Mr. Dow, thank you. Next up, Amanda.
Mr. Chairman, Sheila Ferch is in the room.
Sheila, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Sheila Ferch with the Wyoming Trucking Association. When Senator Guru first approached us about the idea he had to address this issue on Teton Pass, we had several conversations about it at our board meetings. And it wasn't without some trepidation that we actually decided that this is something that probably needs to be considered. We've had members in the Teton County area who have actually made trips over to shippers in Idaho, asking them to advise drivers that if they're over 60,000 pounds, find a different route. We've made reach outs with trucking associations in both Utah and Idaho to do the same thing. We don't condone drivers that are operating illegally to use Teton Pass, but we know that it happens. And we certainly aren't supportive of seeing efforts to ban commercial traffic on Teton Pass. That's just not a palatable solution. So we certainly are interested in this method of trying to control illegally operated vehicles on Teton Pass. Generally, a weigh in motion scale that's in the pass already is not used for detecting violations. It's used as a screening tool because it's not actually accurate enough to do a violation, but it is accurate enough to look at gross weights and to know if a truck is traveling at a gross weight that's over that restriction. We worked very carefully with the Colonel and Senator Guru to draft the language that you see in there that addresses Teton Pass, because it can only be used in an area that's already restricted. It's also making sure that it's just on gross weights as well. And it will address the trailer issue. It's not just the weight violation, it's the trailer violation. So certainly we understand the issue. And like I said, we don't support a ban. So if this is an alternate that we can consider to address that safety issue, we're certainly supportive of that.
Thank you. Any questions for the Wyoming Trucking Association? Okay, Amanda, who's up next?
Ms. Laura Francis, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Ms. Laura Francis.
Okay, please, Ms. Francis.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Transportation Committee for hearing me today. I'm against the bill for the cameras on Teton Pass. I've lived in Jackson and I've lived in Idaho. I've lived on both sides of the pass, and I do agree that the overweight trucks are a problem and they need to be dealt with, but there's so many other issues on that pass that are a problem, like beyond the trucks, with winter weather. I mean, that is one of the craziest roads in the country. It's got the steepest grade. I just feel like the Teton Pass has to be a much broader conversation for safety, besides just these trucks. In regards to the cameras, I feel like I agree with Mr. Dow about what he said, and I agree with other people about what they've talked about how, you know, if these cameras are put in on Teton Pass, it's kind of a foothold for opening the door for other camera operations to come in upon the Wyoming people. And I just think it's a delicate issue that has to be considered really heavily. And therefore also regarding the pass's location and not being able to fund officers, which would be my absolute preference, to have officers patrolling that pass for all reasons, not just trucks, like safe driving, brake checks, drugs coming up and over the pass, but also Teton Pass is located in one of the richest places for property tax in the nation. Like Wilson, Wyoming has billion-dollar homes. So I find it and then the greater Jackson area is extraordinarily wealthy with who owns those properties. So I find it a stretch to believe that that county of Teton County, which contains the Tetons and Yellowstone National Park and all the wealth in that county, cannot afford to man probably the most dangerous winter pass in the country, cannot afford to man that pass with troopers, summer, winter, fall, and spring. Thank you.
Ms. Francis, question? Okay. Who's up next, Amanda?
Mr. Chairman, Kathy Ide.
Ms. Ide, please.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Kathy Ide and I live in Casper. There are an overwhelming number of reasons I oppose Senate File 3 and the implementation of the automated ticketing machines. But I would like to address some of the specifics in the bill language. Some proponents are arguing in favor of this bill because it is now focused on overweight trucks and violations that are detected by weight scales. However, this argument does not paint a full picture. The bill language still specifically states that images of the vehicle, the driver, and the license plate will be collected by the identification system. This is data that could be collected on innocent drivers as well as violators if the weight scales are not adjusted correctly. So innocent truckers and drivers are not capable of opting out of this surveillance system. Even though the discussion of this bill has focused around overweight trucks on Teton Pass, there is no mention of this location in the bill language. Furthermore, I could find nothing in the bill that restricts identification scanners from being installed on I-25, I-80, or any other roads within Wyoming. But what's even worse is on page 5, lines 10 through 13, it states that the images may be used for discovering other criminal actions. So even though this bill states that the vehicle identification machines are for identifying weight limit or trailer restriction violations, it may in fact be used for identifying other violations outside of this bill's original intent. As to another specific, Senate File 3 states that the data, which could include innocent drivers, is only to be held for 1 year. But this is a moot point, as once the data is originally collected, it's stored and held for years in databases and fusion centers throughout the region. This includes the Wyoming Fusion Center that's located in Cheyenne. This center states on its website that it works with the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI.
Questions for Ms. Ide? No, okay. Amanda, who's next?
Mr. Leonard Martin.
Please admit him.
Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Martin. We can't see you, but we can hear you. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to speak against this bill based on how it's written, because it lacks the proper safeguards to protect the rights of the people who use our highways. I followed this bill through the Senate committee hearings, and in its form today, it doesn't represent accurately the discussions that I heard in the Senate committee. Additionally, the bill sponsor is adamant that the intent is to provide a ticketing solution for overweight vehicles that use a mountain pass between Wyoming and Idaho. However, lengthy discussions in the committee focused on the use of vehicle identification systems for ticketing in construction zones as well. It implies to me that there is an intention to expand the use of these automated ticketing devices. This bill, if passed as written, would grant blanket authority to WYDOT and any law enforcement jurisdiction in Wyoming to use vehicle identification cameras for any supposed law enforcement activity without limitation or protections of constitutional rights of the public. The way the bill that we're considering today is written, nowhere, at least to my limited ability to discover, does the bill contain language limiting the use of vehicle identification systems to vehicles that actually violate the law, overweight vehicles or mountain passes or speeding in construction zones. Maybe this could be written into a future bill, but I would encourage you to vote no on the one as it sits. Additionally, there are third-party vendors who are used and they are paid on a per ticket basis. This is a can of worms. When you pay a vendor based on volume, what happens if the ticketing is effective and the volume drops off and they need revenue? They're going to figure out a way to use these scam cams to generate the income that keeps their doors open without any regard to the rights of the people in Wyoming. I'm also concerned that repeat offenders.
Okay. Got Amanda, who's up next?
Mr. Chairman, we have a telephone number. So if they unmute themselves, they should be able to talk. I'm not sure who it is.
All right, thank you. If they, whoever it is, would go ahead and do that, please.
Hello, Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. If you would identify yourself, please, and who you're with.
Yes, sir. My name is Michael Pedri. I'm just a Wyoming citizen here in Casper. I have also been sort of following this bill throughout the Senate meetings and have heard many different things concerning the genesis of the bill. It seems to always start with safety, and second, to always be a positive thing for Wyoming because it's going to generate money. The former caller, identified the point that the people that have this software they're a private company and they're going to need to sell their services. They're going to collect data and they'll have the ability to collect data like, how many people violated the speed limit and such things like that. And they will be able to essentially say, well, hey, this, you have this many offenders here that we could be issuing tickets to, you could be making this much money, and I think it's sort of a slippery slope that could easily that you would easily be able to go down as far as just making this more of an enterprise. Also, this bill actually allows me to justify saying that it's a virtual police state bill. And that's sort of a scary thing, because this bill has quite the history going clear back to the late 80s. As far as I know, 18 states have banned this legislation, and it's been said to be unconstitutional by multiple courts throughout these states. The director of WYDOT stated that his job is safety on roads. And
Okay, Amanda, next.
Mr. Chairman, that's all the attendees with their hands raised.
Right. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, with that, I'll close public testimony. Committee? No. Oh, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just a quick opportunity that I wanted to take to support the senator and to represent the work of the Senate committee. I think you can see that this bill has garnered a lot of discussion. I would say to those who are opposed to the bill, we did listen. For a long time, we talked about the danger that we've got going on in those construction zones out across the state, the safety of our workers. But the sponsor and I decided that we would draw that out of the bill and get it back to the original thought, which is what can we do with Teton Pass? We're kind of here to fix problems, Mr. Chairman. This is our best suggestion to you as the House Transportation Committee as to what we might be able to do to keep that pass safe, and further to keep that pass open for commerce. And so appreciate the opportunity to stop by. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quickly, Senator Guru.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I know. I'll be brief. What you heard, as the good chairman just said, we listened. We listened to the comments about foreign companies taking all this. That's why we understood, said this is a problem, take it all out. The equipment that's there is there right now. Everything is there that can be used. We just need to put up a flashing light and pretty much on our way. And I just want to say one last thing. Like I told you, my constituents want to close Teton Pass for truck traffic. I don't want to bring that bill. But more importantly, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, what I will not abide by is bringing a bill with a family sitting behind me named after one of their members who died. We do this a lot around here. We wait until something happens and we react. What this bill attempts to do is to be proactive, to take a solution in a cash-strapped society that we don't have the resources to put the police that those folks talk about there, that we don't have the resources to leave this to scale open, and actually be proactive and stop something before it occurs. I urge you to support this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Committee? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I want to ask you about the cost benefit issue here. I suspect that the businesses that use the short route have calculated what it costs to do the long route. Time, labor, mileage, equipment. So they've done that cost analysis and they've determined that it's cheaper to go over the pass. So have you determined what that number is? Because the only deterrence I see in this is a fine so large that when a trooper does pull them over, that a single event is just way too expensive and they'll start using the other route. Thank you.
Senator? Mr. Chairman, Representative Overmuir, great question, and you're absolutely right. The difference is, and this is the key, with the photographic evidence, the picture gets taken every time they go over. So I don't believe, you're absolutely right. And we thought about this. We talked about it. I can hear him now. The guy, the company who brings the goods and services over the hill, like to build a home and say, oh, would you like the VIP service? It's just $450 more. Boom, the fine gets paid. Well, I think it's just now a question of every time the truck goes over and the multiple offenders that you heard Colonel Howler talk about. I think that's the deterrent. They know that every time they go over, they're going to get a ticket. It will soon not be cost effective.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Okay. Well, go ahead, Representative Henderson. I guess we just killed one Senate bill. Please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did arrive a little late, but others have asked questions as well. And my question is, given the amount of testimony and discussion, was the alternative perhaps to set up a permit process for these vehicles, and so that they cannot come over that pass without that permit, thereby also providing an extra revenue flow?
Senator?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Henderson, once again, that involves setting up system, people, dollars, more cost to YDOT. Once again, in these cash strapped times, cost prohibitive. That was the genesis of the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Committee? Moved by O'Hearn. Is there a second? I will second it then for discussion. So discussion on the bill. Representative McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be quite brief on my comments. So the policy clearly has been in the past for the state of Wyoming not to go into speed cameras or red light cameras. And depending on whose numbers you look at, approximately anywhere between 16 and 19 states at this point allow red light cameras or stoplight cameras. That is a definite policy judgment that needs to be made. Of course, the school bus enforcement, there were shades there and it was a civil fine and it went against, it wasn't a moving violation. I think that my constituents, the policy has been, the policy that I've heard is don't go down the road of red light cameras or speed cameras. So that is how I will be basing my vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. So any amendments on the bill? I think all of us have had a chance to read the bill. Any amendments? Question being called. Oh. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know you want to move on, but this is an important bill to these guys. They've been working on it, so we got to take the time to do it. The 400, I want to just go back to the same question. Do you have any kind of empirical evidence that a repeat of the $400 fine is the deterrent that will actually work? Do you have any sense of that at all? Or because I'm looking for the deterrence, not the fines, none of that, but the actual deterrence that's going to make the owners of the vehicle say, we're going around a long way, because even if there's a 10% chance you're going to get caught, it's too expensive. We just can't go that way. It's going to cost too much on a single violation. So if you could just address that one more time. Thank you.
Senator?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Obermuller, we had represented to us in committee some conversation about that with the Trucking Association. There was some, I can't speak for that organization, Ms. Ferch would, but there was some indication that if every single time that you went over that pass, that you were going to be ticketed, that would serve as a deterrent. It's pretty tough to judge that. I don't know if that fine is high enough we think it's going to reduce and eventually, hopefully, make that camera obsolete, or at least something that we could turn off in the future. So that's the best answer I can give you from what we were able to gather, Representative.
Thank you. Question on the bill. Diana, would you take roll, please?
Representative Baker?
No.
Representative Brown has submitted an absentee vote of aye.
Okay.
Representative Burt?
No.
Representative Henderson?
No.
Representative McGuire?
No.
Representative Obermueller?
No.
Representative O'Hearn?
Aye.
Representative Stivar?
No.
Chairman Burkhart?
Aye.
6 noes, 3 ayes.
Senator, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
So I'm going to change the order on this. Chairman Landon has been waiting patiently. So we're going to do 106 next. And if anyone in the audience has been waiting for 13, I apologize to you. But Senator Landon is here and has taken time from his schedule to be with us. So Senator, please.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I hope that I can expedite this for you. This may look familiar to those of you who have been on the Transportation and Military Affairs Committee. You might remember that we had a statutory amendment bill come out of the interim last year. It was kind of an omnibus bill and was not well received on the Senate floor. In fact, it was voted down because it was the feeling of several senators that we had too many topics in one bill. I respected that, and there were a couple of things that you will see coming over from the Senate that I thought were important enough, or at least made sense enough, Mr. Chairman, that we put them in a bill and bring them back through. And so that's what 106 does. It just simply goes in, and you'll see on page 2, each of those statutory references are the brand new license plates that we have put on board since 2010. The wildlife plate, the hot rod plate. I thought I'd have time to go back up and get my notes. I don't have them with me, so I'm kind of going off the top of my head.
Sorry, Senator. I just thought you were here. I would give you the opportunity.
No, I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. And then really the other change goes over on page 4 and changes how we give out the stickers for recreational vehicles. Recreational vehicle shows are a big deal, and this would allow for someone to pick up 2 stickers instead of 1, and we consolidated into 31.3.102. That's the list of all of the fees that are involved. So really what this bill does, Mr. Chairman, is just update these statutes. If you have specific questions about them, I would hope the department could help us on that, but pretty straightforward bill that just catches us up.
Okay, questions for the senator? Okay, I see the Director Reiner's back with us. Director?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'll turn over this this testimony to Mr. Rossetti. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Rossetti, please.
Mr. Chairman, Taylor Rossetti, Support Services Administrator for WYDOT. Chairman Landon, I did a quick walkthrough for the bill. I certainly can answer any specific questions you may have. I do believe that, as he mentioned, the first portion of that bill is adding the additional plates to that fee. This has been an important topic, so I will read those off just so the group has them. That is the street rod plates, the custom vehicle plates, special plates for Gold Star, tribal license plates, and the wildlife conservation plates. Again, those are just new specialty plates that have been added since the last time this fee was looked at. Also, the second section there for the demo plates and everything for the offsite RV sales, as the chairman mentioned, what we're doing there is instead of having a fee established here, as well as in 31.3.102, we're just referencing you to 31.3.102, which still gives the legislature full authority to assign those fees, but you only have to adjust it in one spot if you're going to make that as you go further. On On the back end of this, in section 2 of the bill, I believe, when you start getting to pages, sorry, sir, page 4, lines 16 and 17, you're repealing some sections. These are largely repealing definitions that are no longer applicable. Some of these have to do with antique vehicle licenses, as well as an antiquated definition for some vehicle dealers that it's no longer in practice. Certainly, I would provide any additional detail you would like, and I'd stand for questions.
Questions for Mr. Rossetti? Any questions? Okay. Representative Stiver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What about the veterans license plates? Does this fall under the veterans license plates?
Mr. Rossetti?
Chairman Burkhart, Representative Stivar, those plates were already included in this language, so they do not need to be added at this time.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay. All right. With that, then I'll open public testimony. Anybody here in the room wish to testify on Senate File 106? Amanda, do we have anyone in the waiting room for 106?
Mr. Chairman, no one has their hand raised at the moment.
Okay. I'll give it a minute. Okay. Anybody raise their hand, Amanda?
Mr. Chairman, no.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I'll close public testimony. Committee? Okay. Moved by Henderson, seconded by Stiver. Discussion? Okay. Question being called. All those, would you take the roll, Diana? Sorry.
Representative Baker. Representative Brown has submitted an absentee vote of aye. Representative Burt.
Aye.
Representative Henderson.
Aye.
Representative McGuire.
Aye.
Representative Obermuller.
Aye.
Representative O'Hearn.
Aye.
Representative Stivar.
Aye.
Chairman Burkhart.
Aye. Senator, do you have, and I think that was 9 ayes, correct?
Yes,
Diane?
9
Thank you.
ayes.
Senator, do you have someone to carry this for you on the floor?
Mr. Chairman, I see a lot of great faces up there, and I know you'll take good care of it. There are some notes available, and it's possible that Mr. Rossetti might forward those to you, Mr. Chairman, but I also can bring them over, and I'll catch, one of your associates.
I think Vice Chair McGuire just volunteered.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. It's good to see all of you on Transportation, Military Affairs, and appreciate your work.
You
Thank
bet. And we'll be seeing a lot of each other.
Yeah, that for sure.
Thank you, Senator Chairman. Okay, committee, we have 35 minutes. And I would think we could get through Senate File 13 in 35 minutes if we've all done our homework. Amanda's the director still on? I think he's probably in a position to present the bill unless someone on the committee wants to do it. Nope. Okay. Director, can you present Senate File 13 for us, please? Director, you're muted.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. My preference would be to pass it to Ms. Lacey Bruckner for the details of the bill. Let me just start with saying this certainly came up as an issue over the years, and this last interim, there is a working group of stakeholders that worked together very well to produce this bill, and I'm happy with the results. So with that, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll pass it to Ms. Lacey Bruckner.
All right, Ms. Bruckner, please, if you could walk us through the bill.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you for having me today, and thank you, committee. And I'll just walk through the issue and history of it and the revisions in the bill. To start with, as Director Reiner had mentioned, there were some issues addressed in the interim for the towing companies when they tow a vehicle and the owner does not reclaim it. The towing company has some options within a couple of different statutes to dispose of the vehicle, one being under Title 29 that addresses lien sales, and the other being in Title 31, which addresses abandoned vehicles. The language in those two statutes creates some confusion among all interested parties as to which process the towing company should use under what circumstance to process a vehicle that they have towed and the owner refuses to claim it. The revisions in this bill clarifies which process the towing companies should follow when they are aware of the interested parties involved and the owner can be identified. It also allows the towing companies to be more efficient and cost effective, when disposing of unclaimed vehicles. The revisions also streamline the notification process to lien holders and to owners in both Title 29 for lien sale processes and in Title 31 for abandoned vehicle processes. The changes in this bill benefit constituents, industry, county officials, and the other interested parties that were identified. The revisions in the bill do not affect the county's abandoned vehicle processes for vehicles that are abandoned on public property, nor does it affect the abandoned vehicle fund that those counties administer. Law enforcement operations for having vehicles towed are not affected here, and WYDOT's processes for processing title searches and sending notifications are also not impacted by this bill. If I may just go through a quick history, as the director alluded to, in March of 2020, the Wyoming Towing and Recovery Professionals Association requested this topic be an interim study for the Joint Transportation, Highway, and Military Affairs Committee. And then in September of 2020, the Towing Association presented their concerns at the interim committee meeting there. They identified inconsistencies with the title and vehicle disposition processes under Title 29 for lien sales and under Title 31 for abandoned vehicles, and requested clarification for which process the towing company should use under which circumstances. After hearing testimony from all parties involved during that interim committee meeting, the committee requested that a working group be put together and present draft legislation resolving those issues to be presented at the November interim committee meeting. A working group was put together. That working group consisted of members of the Towing Association, county clerks, the insurance industry, law enforcement, and WYDOT. And at the November 30th meeting, draft legislation was presented and the committee heard those recommendations from the working group and voted to sponsor Senate File 13. That's a quick history on that. And if I may, I can walk through the bill quickly if that would be your pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Ms. Bruckner.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so starting with the bill, basically addresses, like I said, lien sale processes and abandoned vehicle processes for towing companies. And we can start right off on page 2 of the bill. Starts off in the lien sale section of the law. Page 2, lines 9 through 12 clarify that a towing company is not a warehouseman, and therefore they are entitled to dispose of vehicles left unattended on their property through Title 29 lien sale processes. This is one of the items the towing industry presented as confusing with this request, and this was a way to clarify that. And then moving further down on page 2, lines 19 through 23, and on into page 3, what this does is this requires that if the towing company is using Title 29 lien sale process, that they have to notify the owner of record and any lien holders within 30 days of the tow that where the vehicle is located, what the bill is for towing, storage, etc., and the date and time at which they would have a sale to dispose of the vehicle should an owner or a lien holder choose not to reclaim it. Basically is what that section does. And on into page 3, it just specifies the specific information that would have to be disclosed in those notifications. And then moving down to on page 3, lines 15 through 19, then that just establishes that the storage fees shall not exceed 180 days should the owner or lien holder not collect the vehicle. And that is just to ensure that those storage fees don't accrue indefinitely and that these vehicles are disposed of in a timely manner. Okay, and then moving on through to page 4, we move into Title 31, Chapter 2, which addresses title requirements. And this specific statute, 31-2-111, is already in statute providing towing companies to obtain a junk title or abandoned vehicles that are worth less than $2,000. There is less expense to getting a junk title for these vehicles that are not worth anything, more cost effective to the towing companies, and more efficient in disposing of them through scrap or to be crushed at a recycling center. This bill adds that same option for towing companies to process vehicles that are going through a lien sale process that are worth less than $2,000 that they currently in statute can dispose of abandoned vehicles. So this streamlines with the junk vehicles that are worth less than $2,000, giving the towing companies this option to dispose of these vehicles that they end up with through the lien sale process that are not worth anything. Okay, and moving on then into page 5, that information carries over to page 5. And I think our next change of significance is on page 6 that addresses, removes the term retail and replaces it with fair market value. Within Title 31, Chapter 13, abandoned vehicle statutes, some chapter or some paragraphs refer to a retail value and some refer to a fair market value. This is just making it consistent throughout the bill that whenever we're talking about the value of an abandoned vehicle, we are referring to it as a fair market value. Fair market value is more practical for abandoned vehicles, as oftentimes the condition of that vehicle may not reflect a retail value like a dealer would use, but more the fair market value, which may at that point just be the value of the scrap metal. And then, Mr. Chairman, moving on to page 7, line 6 and 7, this addresses the notifications that are required to be sent by certified mail, to the lien holder and owner of record. And this just adds that a return receipt requested be required for that certified mail notification. That was a request by the county clerks so that they have documented proof that the lien holder or owner of record received that notice. Moving down on page 7 to line 22, again, that just addresses fair market value. And going through the next significant change, I guess, would be on page 9. Here we're talking about disposition of vehicles left unattended on private property, so private property abandoned vehicles. Lines 17 through 22 here remove language that identify a vehicle that is left at a repair shop or a towing company or service shop as abandoned after 30 days. This is another section of the statute that the towing industry indicated was causing confusion because this specific scenario is already covered under Title 29 for lien sales. The identity of the vehicle owner is known. It was towed or taken to a repair shop to be fixed or towed after an accident or what have you. So the identity of the vehicle owner is known to the towing company, and this would be more appropriately addressed under Title 29 in the lien sale statutes versus an abandoned vehicle. It was not abandoned. The owner just chose not to follow through and pay for their towing or repair or storage fees. And okay, so think then we move on to page 10, lines 2 through 4. Here, this is another issue that the towing industry addressed, that there was some different language in this paragraph, 3113-109 and 3113-104, as far as when the title search to identify an owner or a lien holder for an abandoned vehicle could be done and when those notifications could be sent out. This streamlines for towing companies with 3113-104 so that those title searches are being processed and the results sent to the towing companies immediately as provided under 3113-104 so that the towing company can then send the notices out and get that process rolling. So that is really just a cleanup there. Then on page 10, line 10, this paragraph lists what information is required to be added to the notice that's sent to a lien holder or an owner of record, requires vehicle information. And the change here just says that if the license plate number and state indicator is available, that should be added to the notice. That is, the vehicles that are left abandoned are don't always have a license plate. So this would not require that information if it was not available to the towing company. Okay, and then I think our next significant change falls on page 11. Moving down to, starting at page 11, line 15. This 3113-109, this addresses disposition of abandoned vehicles on private property. So the language you'll see stricken here sets a limit for storage fees and removal, towing, and sale fees for towing companies when they are disposing of abandoned vehicles that they have towed on private property. These limitations are intended for to prevent the county's abandoned vehicle funds from being depleted. That way, the counties are not responsible for excessive towing, storage, recovery fees for abandoned vehicles. This same language already exists in 3113-108, which specifically addresses abandoned vehicles on public property that are impounded by law enforcement. And those vehicles are what the county abandoned vehicle funds are intended to cover. Removing this language allows the towing companies to sell the vehicle at their private property abandoned vehicle sales for an amount that would allow them to recover the actual expenses they incurred by removing that abandoned vehicle. In addition to that, lines 19 through 23 then, as a balance maybe, establishes that those storage fees cannot accrue over 180 days. And that ensures that excessive storage fees are not accruing and that these vehicles are disposed of in a timely manner. And this 180-day language mirrors the language that was added in Title 29 through this bill, and it also mirrors existing language in specifically Title 29, Chapter 7, Article 104, which says the termination of a lien happens after 180 days. So to be consistent, that 180 days were added to the abandoned vehicle side and the lien sale side. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that goes through the bill, and I would stand for any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
Questions from Ms. Bruckner? Any questions? Okay. All right, Bruckner. Amanda, do we have anyone in the waiting room who wish to testify on Senate File 13?
Mr. Chairman, no one has their hand raised at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Anybody in the audience? Ms. Wilkinson, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Catherine Wilkinson, here today representing American Property Casualty Insurance Association. Mr. Chairman, we are in support of the bill. We were part of the working group. I would like to point out one concern as a policy consideration for you on page 11 with the deletion of the storage fees. APCIA does think that $20 per day is a little low, but we would like to see a cap restored on those storage fees. There is a history of accrual of large storage fees. So $760 is probably low as well. So I might recommend doubling it as a policy decision, but just wanted to point that out for your consideration. Otherwise, we do stand in support of the bill.
Okay, questions for Ms. Wilkinson? Questions? Okay, Ms. Wilkinson, so what your organization would like to see is reinstate the stricken language and increase those fees somewhat.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. And if you, the committee does not want to do a per day fee, I think a cap would suffice on that as well.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Ms. Wilkinson? Thank you very much, Ms. Wilkinson. Amanda, has anyone showed up in the waiting room?
Mr. Chairman, no one has their hand raised.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, with that, I'll close public testimony. Okay, moved by Henderson, seconded by Stiver. Okay, just Representative Henderson.
Make a motion to page 11.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd make a motion on page 11 to restore the stricken language, starting on line 15 and ending on line 18, and then to double the fee to 15. And if I can get a second, I'll explain.
Seconded by O'Hearn.
Based on the testimony and the presentation, I think this is a reasonable amendment. Ask for your favorable consideration.
Representative McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I would just offer a little bit different perspective, and having worked as a prosecutor for a while, we would run into this insofar as people would get picked up, they'd get stuck in jail for Friday, maybe they wouldn't get, they wouldn't get out till Thursday or Friday the next week. And all of a sudden, because their vehicle had been towed, all of a sudden now they've got another $1,800 on their vehicle and they can't get to work. So I hate to see it go up too high. The $20 a day, I can see that, and maybe a cap at 1,000, but I would hate to see it go up much higher than that because there are working folks out there and they really get hurt with this.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just urge caution on this. I think that if this were to pass, as amendment were to pass, I think it would do it a little injustice on the floor. I think it would change the arguments, and then going back through the process on the Senate side, I don't know that that would get through. I just would, I would suggest to the committee to resist the amendment. Thank you.
Right. So Representative McGuire, was that in Henderson, was that kind of a friendly change to your amendment, Representative? If it's okay with the second? Just so we're all talking about the same thing.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And it sounded kind of friendly. I'd be willing to amend it to just restore the stricken language, and then we can address the rest of it, in discussions as it goes to the floor, if it does.
Is that acceptable to the second? Okay. Representative Obermuller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So is part of this amendment to then delete the added language because they don't work together?
I think I heard the testimony request or suggesting that we consider restoring the stricken language.
Right, but then there's some added language after it that limits it to 180 days, so it doesn't work. Your amendment just for one piece of it doesn't work with the 180-day limitation. So,
yes.
So is the meaning of it then to drop the added language?
My intent is to have a conforming language. If someone would like to assist with that, it would be good. Thank you.
Okay, one moment. Ms. Wilkinson, would you please return? Ms. Wilkinson, your suggested change to the bill, were you including putting the stricken language back in and deleting the new language, or putting the stricken language back in and keeping the new language, please?
Mr. Chairman, I was not suggesting to delete the new language, and I do hear what you're saying with the 180 days that's in there to keep that consistent with other parts of the statute. It may make more sense to actually keep a per day limit in there rather than the cap with the day one or the other. We do appreciate that time frame is in there to limit those as well, but do think that there should be a monetary limit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so further discussion on the amendment.
Mr. Chairman,
Would you, Representative Henderson, would you?
I think, listen to that and the others here, I think on line 18, if we were to cap that at, say, I think the number that was mentioned was 1,000, that would keep this from rising to an unreachable amount, in my view, referencing those folks who are maybe in exigent circumstances, if you will.
Other discussion? Representative Obermuller, you were calculating.
Well, I guess unless it's considered a friendly amendment, I would amend his amendment to include dropping the added language of the 180 days, so that we simply have the $20 a day with a cap.
Representative?
I would consider that friendly as
Okay.
well.
Okay. Is that acceptable?
If my
with the
second would also.
Okay. All right. So for Diana especially, she has to write all of this down. So Diana, the amendment is to restore the stricken language.
So the 180 days doesn't make any sense at all.
On line 18,
Dropping this language.
the $750 would be changed to $1,000. The $20 on line 16 would remain the same. And then the new language, starting on line 18, going to line 23, would then be stricken. So that's the amendment. Okay, any more discussion on the amendment? Question on the amendment, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
Okay, let's see a show of hands on the amendment. Ayes? Okay, that's 7. Noes, 2. Okay, so that amendment's adopted. Any further amendments? I think we've gone through the bill in detail. Okay. Question being called. Diana, would you take the roll, please?
Representative Baker,
No.
Representative Brown has submitted an absentee vote of aye. Representative Burt,
No.
Representative Henderson.
Aye.
Representative McGuire.
Aye.
Representative Obermuller.
Aye.
Representative O'Hearn.
Aye.
Representative Stivar.
Aye.
Chairman Burkhart.
Aye.
7 ayes and 2 noes.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, Diane, on the schedule for right now?
No, sir.
Okay, and do you have that amendment? Are you? do I
If
need
you
get
want to
with you
double
afterward?
check with me, I'd
I'll check
appreciate
with you
it.
after we're done. With
Thank
that,
you.
we are adjourned.